they decided to clap back on their Instagram account to Adam Silver's remarks. And they posted this. They said, "Don't want to share at Adam Silver." So they literally tagged Adam Silver, used a screenshot from this interview, and posted this in their Instagram story. You guys, I do not know what they think doing that will accomplish.
You're scrolling through Instagram when you see one of the most powerful sports organizations in America posting what can only be described as a middle school comeback. Their post reads, "Don't want to share at Adam Silver," complete with a screenshot and a literal tag of the NBA commissioner. This isn't some random fan account or a player having a bad day. This is the official Women's National Basketball Players Association, representing the most elite female basketball players in the world. This single post has exposed a crisis that threatens the very future of women's professional basketball. We're talking about a complex ownership problem that involves NBA owners, mysterious investor groups, and a revenue sharing structure so convoluted it makes corporate tax law look straightforward. At the center of it all, the woman who Forbes described as the spark that lit the match that set women's sports on fire, Caitlin Clark. What I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see the WNBA, the business of women's sports, and why even the most successful female athletes in the world are fighting for basic financial recognition while their male counterparts earn generational wealth. This story has billion-dollar corporations, social media drama, and enough behind-the-scenes politics to rival any corporate boardroom battle. The future of women's basketball hangs in the balance, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why.
Players in the WNBA are calling for more money. They 9%, I believe, accordingly. They get 9% of total revenue compared to roughly 50% of the revenue of NBA players. Should they be getting a larger share of the revenue in the WNBA?
Yes. I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, went on the Today Show and delivered what might be the most tone-deaf statement in recent sports history. When asked about revenue sharing between the WNBA and its players, Silver stated, and I quote, "I think share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA." On the surface, that might sound reasonable. The NBA generates billions, the WNBA generates millions. Different leagues, different economics, right? Wrong. What Silver just did was essentially tell the most talented female basketball players in the world that they don't deserve equivalent treatment to their male counterparts, and he broadcast it on national television. WNBA players currently receive only 9% of league revenue. 9%. NBA players get 50%. That's more than 5 times what WNBA players receive. These women aren't asking for charity, they're demanding basic fairness in profit distribution. The WNBPA's response was that Instagram story that read, "Don't want to share at Adam Silver," and watching it happen in real time was like witnessing a professional organization's self-destruct. Instead of crafting a strategic response that could actually influence negotiations, they chose corporate trolling. This Instagram post revealed something much deeper than bad PR, a fundamental disconnect between how the WNBPA thinks negotiations work and how multi-billion-dollar sports businesses actually operate.
Adam Silver has caused quite a stir in WNBA world because he just went on the Today Show and he was talking about the WNBA CBA, and here's what he had to say. He said, "I think share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. They are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining and they deserve it." So what he's talking about here is the revenue share that the players have been fighting for. So essentially what the players have said in these negotiations is that they want to be paid more when it comes to their salary, but they also want a higher percentage of the revenue split because currently they are only getting 9% of that revenue split, but we have went over it a million times, you guys. The structure of the WNBA, the finances in the WNBA, and the structure of the finances in the NBA are so wildly different.
Most people don't understand that the WNBA isn't just the WNBA. It's a complex web of ownership that makes this revenue sharing demand nearly impossible. The WNBA itself only owns 42% of the league. The NBA owns another 40%, and there's an investor group that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert brought on board in 2022 who own the remaining 18%. Consider what this means. When WNBA players demand a bigger slice of revenue, they're not just negotiating with WNBA owners, they're essentially asking NBA team owners, people who are accustomed to generating hundreds of millions in profit, to voluntarily reduce their returns. They're asking investment groups who invested expecting specific returns to accept lower profits. This ownership structure explains why Adam Silver can sit on national television and dismiss sharing without concern. From his perspective, why should NBA owners subsidize higher WNBA salaries when they're already funding the league's operations? According to ESPN's coverage, both sides are now presenting completely different versions of reality. The WNBA released a statement claiming, and I quote, "substantial uncapped revenue sharing that enables players' salaries to grow as the league's business grows." But the WNBPA fired back with their representative stating, "run out the clock, put lipstick on a pig, and retread a system that isn't tied to any part of the business." They're essentially calling the WNBA's offer fraudulent, adding that calling any part of their proposal uncapped is precisely why the league's leadership and transparency are being challenged. The WNBA then doubled down with another statement, basically accusing the Players Association of dishonesty. As their spokesperson put it, "It is incorrect and surprising that the WNBPA is claiming they haven't offered genuine revenue sharing," and went on to accuse the union of making misrepresentations while simultaneously accusing the league of deliberate delays. Now, we have both sides calling each other liars in public, with millions of dollars and the future of women's professional basketball hanging in the balance. Through it all, there's an underlying question nobody wants to address. What happens if they can't reach an agreement?
What does that do? What does that do? It's so similar to when they did the whole clapback thing and it was like, we call BS and we see you. It's like, I don't understand what posting this does besides stir up more drama. People are like, ooh, look at them. It's like, no, we're acting like children. Should be acting like a professional organization. You have to work out these things at the negotiating table, not on social media.
Right in the middle of this chaos, Forbes releases their America's Most Powerful Women in Sports list, and Caitlin Clark sits at number 4. The same Caitlin Clark who just finished her rookie season and is already earning an estimated $8.1 million, more than most WNBA players will make in their entire careers. Forbes described her as, and I quote, the spark that lit the match that set women's sports on fire. And that might be the most accurate description of any athlete's impact I've ever read. Clark didn't just break records, she shattered the entire system. She forced everyone to pay attention to women's basketball in an unprecedented way. Clark's success actually proves both sides of this revenue sharing argument. Her Nike deal, $28 million over 8 years, demonstrates that there's real money to be made in women's basketball when you have the right star power. Simultaneously, that deal is absolutely inadequate when compared to what male superstars receive. $28 million over 8 years for someone who single-handedly transformed an entire sport's trajectory, that's criminal undervaluation. Clark's agent, Aaron Kane, also made Forbes' list at number 25. Think about that. An agent made a list of the most powerful women in sports primarily because of one client. That's how transformative Clark's impact has been. But Clark's success might actually be complicating CBA negotiations rather than simplifying them. The WNBA can point to players like Clark and argue, as they essentially have, "See, the system works, look at her earnings." Meanwhile, the Players Association can counter with arguments along the lines of, "If one rookie can generate this much value, imagine what we could all be earning with equitable revenue sharing." Clark's success has exposed just how much money has been left on the table for years. When someone can transition from college basketball to earning $8.1 million in one season, it raises uncomfortable questions about why veteran players who've been building this league for years are still fighting for basic financial security. This brings us to perhaps the most uncomfortable truth in this entire story. The people covering this league are getting exhausted by the constant controversy. Content creators are openly saying they're drained by covering the WNBA because it's become so focused on drama rather than athletic achievement. When the people whose job it is to promote your league are saying they need respite from the negativity, you have a serious brand problem. That brand problem affects everything, from sponsor interest to fan engagement to media coverage. It's a vicious cycle where controversy creates more controversy, and meanwhile, the actual basketball gets lost in the noise.
The fact that the WNBPA, who represents all of the players in the league, is doing that, it's just so messy. And when stuff like this continues to happen, it makes me think, will there not be a WNBA season next year? And I do think that would be so detrimental to the league and all the momentum that it has. People are already getting turned off because there is more drama than there is basketball in this league. And that's a fact.
Nobody wants to discuss this reality. The WNBA might not survive this negotiation, not because the league isn't viable, but because the current structure makes meaningful change almost impossible without someone absorbing a massive financial loss. Consider this scenario. If players achieve their goal and revenue sharing jumps from 9% to even 25%, still far below NBA levels, though where does that money originate? NBA owners who are already subsidizing the league aren't going to voluntarily accept reduced returns. The investor group didn't invest to make less profit, and the WNBA itself only controls 42% of the revenue stream. Any significant increase in player compensation probably requires restructuring the entire ownership model. Restructuring ownership models in professional sports is like performing surgery during an earthquake. Theoretically possible, but extremely dangerous and likely to end catastrophically. But this crisis also represents the biggest opportunity in WNBA history. For the first time, there's concrete proof that women's basketball can generate serious revenue. Clark's impact on viewership, attendance, and merchandise sales wasn't just impressive, it was transformative. The Golden State Valkyries sold out every home game in their inaugural season. Expansion teams are making strategic moves, like Toronto hiring Sandy Brondello after her surprising dismissal from the New York Liberty. The market is confirming that women's basketball has arrived. The question is whether the business structure can evolve quickly enough to capture that momentum. Both sides are missing the bigger picture. Instead of fighting over the current revenue pie, they should be collaborating to make the pie dramatically larger. If the WNBA can capture even a fraction of the cultural moment that Clark created, we're talking about revenue growth that makes current negotiations look trivial, but that requires trust, collaboration, and long-term thinking. Three things that are in short supply when you're posting memes about the NBA commissioner on Instagram. The WNBA is at a crossroads. They can either figure out how to align everyone's interests around growth and shared success, or they can continue this public battle that makes everyone look unprofessional and ultimately damages the product. We've got CBA negotiations that resemble a soap opera, ownership structures that make meaningful change nearly impossible, and social media strategies that would embarrass a high school student council. But we also have Caitlin Clark proving that women's basketball can drive massive commercial success. We have expansion teams making intelligent moves and selling out arenas. We have a generation of young players who are more marketable and media savvy than ever before. This might be the most critical moment in WNBA history. Not because of the drama, but because the stakes have never been higher. If they can solve this puzzle, if they can create a sustainable model that fairly compensates players while maintaining the business relationships that keep the league viable, the WNBA could explode into mainstream relevance like never before. But if this becomes a protracted battle that damages relationships and hurts the brand, we might be witnessing the beginning of the end for professional women's basketball as we know it. Both sides need to stop treating this like a zero-sum game and start thinking like business partners. The WNBPA needs to retire the Instagram clapbacks and present serious, realistic proposals. The WNBA needs to stop hiding behind complex ownership structures and start showing transparent numbers that prove their commitment to growth. Most importantly, they need to remember that fans don't care about revenue sharing percentages or ownership structures. Fans care about watching exceptional basketball and supporting incredible athletes. Every day this drags on in public is another day that the story becomes about controversy instead of competition. Are we witnessing the growing pains of a league finally discovering its value, or are we watching a business relationship implode in real time? The future of women's basketball might depend on whether these negotiations can move from social media back to the conference room where they belong. And honestly, the outcome is far from certain. If you want to stay updated on how this all plays out, make sure to subscribe because this story is just getting started. What do you think? Can the WNBA solve this puzzle, or are we headed for a complete breakdown? Let me know in the comments below.